Hey, Jamie, thanks so much for joining me on a well-designed business today.
Hi, Luann. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I promised myself I wasn't going to do this, but it is the first thing I'm going to do. We're going to shout out, man.
What?
We're going to shout out.
I told her I don't want her head to get too big. She gets so
That's
many shout outs on here.
well, you know what? Meredith Huck is who we're talking about. She has really created such a network of colleagues in this business. And,
Yeah.
I keep learning about each of you. And whenever somebody fills out on the form, how did you hear about the podcast? Like Meredith Huck, right? And what's so funny is in Instagram, maybe about 2 weeks ago or so, she actually wrote, Luann, I tell everyone and everyone about you and your daughter, Christy.
Yep, she does.
So hello to Meredith from me and Jamie.
Hi, Mare.
All right. Now, this is your show, though, and we're going to talk about you,
Yes.
Jamie. And you made a statement on your intake form that one of the best ways to combat imposter syndrome is
hmm
to thoughtfully invest in yourself as a business owner and also in your business development. And
Right.
so I love this. You have me at hello with this line, but talk to a little bit about it from your perspective. What did you mean when you put that on the form there?
Yeah. So I feel like there's no one in this business or in the world that does not deal with some level of imposter syndrome. Like it doesn't matter how long you've been in the business. Um, I had an Instagram message back and forth with someone who is very well known and very big in this business. And she was posting a story about having imposter syndrome. And I was like, oh, so the great XYZ even has it. She's like, yeah, so it's literally everyone. So I feel like one of the ways to help combat that is by investing in your business. I've done a lot of investing in my business, and I just feel like it raises your confidence when you learn more. You know what you're doing, you feel like you know what you're talking about, and confidence is just the key. So I feel like that comes from investing in yourself, bettering your business is going to make you more confident.
Well, and I love the concept because I even talked about it in my first book 7 years ago, about being the expert, like being the expert in the room. And
Yeah,
so that goes both ways when we're working on our business and we're working in our business. So when we work in our business, you're the expert in the room when you go to High Point or you go to Las Vegas Market or you go to an exciting Windows conference or Luann Live conference, and you're getting more information on how to do the design part of what you're doing, right? Like you're
right,
learning from your colleagues, you're seeing the furniture, you're seeing what's available. The other side of it is being the expert in your business, getting the training on the process and the system. And the thing about it is I I like that you make the connection to the imposter syndrome with it, because I've often talked about it just from, to me it's logical. The more you
right,
know and the more you understand, the confidence comes along, right? Like, how could it not? Like, now I know how to do my bookkeeping. I don't do it, but I know how. So now I feel better about myself, or now I know what brands align with my aesthetic because I've been to market multiple times and I've taken the
right.
time to curate that, right? But that connecting it to imposter syndrome, Jamie, talk more about that.
So I just feel like it's hard to feel like an imposter if you feel like you really know your stuff.
Mm,
I think imposter syndrome comes from being unsure, which there's so much to know in this business. And, a lot of people are self taught, didn't go to school, kind of. I don't want to say fell into it. You always say like no one falls into this, but maybe don't have like the educational background or whatever. So there's just a lot to learn, and a lot that people don't know. And so then it makes you feel unsure if you're trying to sell a sofa to a client and you've never sat on it and you're not really familiar with the lines yet because you haven't been to market or what have you. It's hard to feel confident in that sale, and then you get that imposter syndrome feeling like, what am I doing here? I don't know anything. I don't how can I sell this sofa to someone? Why should they trust me? And you kind of start spiraling. But I feel like if you have that knowledge, if you've made that investment, if you've gone to High Point, you've sat on the sofa, you can speak to its quality, how it feels when you sit on it, you know the line, all of that stuff, just makes you feel, again, more confident. And then, like, no, I know my shit. I know what I'm doing. I'm not like faking this. I've been there. I've done that.
What I love is that you said in there was the spiral, because I think that was the little key that I was looking for, and you said it, because I do understand if we don't understand how to do something, it creates an uncertainty. And
Right.
so then my brain is like, so then go crack that uncertainty. Go learn your books, or go learn about furniture, or go learn about window treatments, or whatever it is. But that's the key of the imposter syndrome there, because it's that feeling of, well, I don't know how to do this. Well, I probably don't know how to do that. And then that means that that's probably not, I'm not probably not doing that right either. And now
Right.
the whole thing is a mess, right?
And how am I
And it's
how am I even in business? And yeah,
right.
no
Like,
one's gonna
what am
hire
I
me.
doing
Yeah.
here? Right.
Yeah.
And the thing
Yep.
is, that is all noise in our head, because we might have that one slice where we really don't know something, but it doesn't mean that all the other spiral is deserved or warranted. But that
Right.
is what happens to us as humans, though, is your point, right?
Right. 100%. And I think a lot of people think, oh, someone else knows everything. Again, like this super big designer I'm talking to, like, you think she's got it all figured out. Like, she doesn't either. No one does. But I
Mm.
think it's just like having the confidence to do the thing too. Like, there's some meme out there about, someone way stupider than you is doing the thing you want to do. And it's like, it's so true. And they're doing it just because they freaking did it. Like,
Right,
and
right.
you're sitting here swirling about, like, I don't know enough. And it's like, you just have to go do it, learn, educate yourself, invest along the way. But it's really like so much about the confidence, I think.
I love it. I love it. And the thing is, what you've done is you've taken an approach where understanding certain amount of that imposter syndrome and that not knowing what we're doing is bound to creep up along the way, all along the way. And what you've decided to do is, let me strategically make consistent, conscious investments in your own education and personal development, so that you're mitigating it in real time. That's what I'm seeing and hearing out of the form that you sent to me. Is that kind of what you're doing, Jamie?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And it's like, okay, what's the next weak spot or whatever where I'm feeling uncertain, or, I don't feel super confident standing in my space, as Sandra says, like, okay, let me go delve into that and kind of become an expert there. And then I can feel really good about the information I'm putting out, to my clients or whatever about that piece of the business.
Yeah. So to that end, a large part of your business over the last 6 years has been design for construction projects. But off
Yes.
air, you explained to me how you invested in taking Design for Construction 101 at Lou University with Jenny. And
Yeah.
share with us what you said to me off air about your decision to do it and the aftermath of doing it.
Yeah, so when I did Jenny's class, I had been doing new builds, working with construction projects for a few years. So I was no stranger to that. I wasn't coming into it like, what's an elevation? What's a spec book? Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But I just kind of wanted to gut check myself. Like, I know Jenny is the best. I know that she knows what she's doing. She has an amazing business. She works with tons of builders out in Arizona. So to me, I'm like, this is worth the money just to like peek behind the curtain at what Jenny is doing and kind of check what I'm doing against what she's doing and see, like, am I on the right track here? Is there anything that I'm missing? Are there any gaps that, she can fill in for me? So it was more of that. And I thought it was so worth it. And again, I did feel like, okay, I'm on the right track. Like, I'm doing the elevations, I've got my spec book, all of that stuff. But even just like her template that she had for it, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take that and use it now. So, I was saying to you off air, like, if I can just get one little nugget from something that I'm investing in, that has the potential to make a huge difference in my business. And that can mean, six figures in the design business. So I feel like, it's really worth it if you can take one thing away.
Well, and that's the truth, right? We discussed that as well. It's the course is $1,900, but you close one project. You close one $10,000 renovation of a family room, let alone one design build for
Yeah.
multiple six figures. Like, why are we still talking about what this course costs is basically my
Such a drop in
question.
the bucket. Yeah. Yeah. And
Exactly.
then it's gonna, like you're saying, you have that knowledge forever. So it's not just that first project you get from it, it's forever, you know?
Yeah. And I love your philosophy on I don't have to not know anything in order to learn something. It's funny
Hmm.
because a couple of years ago, I invested 5 figures in a speaker training program. And, the Vincenz looks at me. He's like, "What are you doing?" And
Do you
I'm
know how to
like,
speak?
right. He's like, "I've watched you 20 times. You've done it 500 more times when I haven't been there to watch you." He goes, "And I don't remember anybody ever going, 'Get the cane. Who wants this lady on stage?'"
Yeah.
Right? But my thing is what didn't I know? And I had the
Right.
exact same thought process as you, Jamie. And it was funny because just like you, like if you had had a pre-conversation with myself or Jenny, your conversation would have been probably very similar to my conversation with the person who owns this speaking training. The person, by the time we were done talking about 25 minutes, said, "I'm going to tell you what, we strive to teach 5 core things in the year long of this program. You probably have 3 of them down. If you if you find it worth it to come and learn these other 2 for our price tag, then we
Then do.
welcome
Yeah.
you in because you have to apply to be in." And she said, "But if you're going to look at me and say, 'I knew 3 out of 5 things,' it's not for you." And I was like, "No, no,
Right.
no, no. I want to know those 2 other things. I want to know what they
Right.
are."
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Right?
And that's how I feel like I want to close the gap.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be, the Grand Canyon. Like, I want to close any gap. I want to
right.
be the best, get incrementally better at everything that I'm doing. So,
Well, and the thing is, what I know is true of yourself and other designers and of me. I knew, and you would have eventually closed that gap, but would it have been 3 more years of doing design builds? Would you have, like, if there were
right.
3 big takeaways that you got from the class with Jenny, you're a smart person. You're intentional. But my thing is, well, could I just have it now? Like, why do I have to
Right.
wait and figure out the answers for everything? If
Yep.
there's certain things every day that we're all going to figure out for ourselves and we're going to learn by doing. But there's lots of information and knowledge out there that we can just pay the fee and get the info, you know?
Yeah, agreed. And that's my philosophy too. I'm like, yeah, if I can pay $1,800 to have access to Jenny and, see
Yeah.
what she's doing and make sure I'm on the right track, get a template, like totally worth it to me and where I was at in my business. So,
I'm curious because you also invested in Sandra Funk's The Interior Design Standard.
yes,
And
I did.
so I'm curious because that is basically a design franchise in a box model. It's like a click and your Asana is built and all the things.
Yep.
And what I have found, which I think is positive, and I'm curious with designers like yourself that have taken time to work on their business, often it's a similar type of thing. It's like, here's everything, but I'm going to pull these 8, 5, whatever, let's call it 25% out of this and just up level what I was already doing. Whereas if you are completely new or have never established a system, you can just adopt the standard.
Right.
How did it work for you, Jamie?
Kind of the first thing that you were saying. And I actually
Yeah.
had someone ask me about this in a Facebook group about the standard. Like, okay, if you already had systems and you're not like brand new, do you feel like it was still worth it? And I said, yeah, absolutely. Again, like Sandra in that program gives you so much. And what I love, like I've said this a million times, but I feel like other programs say, like, oh, yeah, we're giving you everything. But then it's like, oh, they'll show you a screenshot of their presentation, or they're not really giving you still kind of have to go out and recreate things. But with Sandra, it's like, nope, here's the contract. Like, literally, here's the Asana, like, literally, she's actually giving you everything. Um, so I loved that. And it was just like, yeah, is there anything that I can, up level from what I have to what she's given me? Like, I had a contract, but I started using her contract because it was way better. You
Mm.
know, now I'm actually in the process of I'm working with Wendy Estella, who I know
Ah,
you
love
know,
it. Yes.
to just kind of like tweak it even more to make it more personal to me. But she said, "Oh my God, Jamie, of all my clients that I've had, and she works with designers specifically,
Sure.
this is the best contract. Like, you have everything in here. We just kind of like rearranged it to suit me a little bit better. But so I thought that was a huge credit. It's not just like a boilerplate
Oh,
contract.
Sandra doesn't
Um,
phone anything in. There's
yeah,
no way.
yeah,
She didn't just Google interior design contract and put it as part of the standard. She
yeah.
worked, very
Yes,
closely
it's
with her
very
own lawyers. Yeah.
thorough. Yep. So,
I
yeah, so
love
I
though
already
that
had
you
stuff
take it to
because
your own lawyer though too. I see I that to me, that's like that it's just like we say all the time. I don't expect you to do your bookkeeping, but I expect and hope that you know what your bookkeeper is doing. And to me,
right,
that's that same thing with your contract. It's like take it to your own lawyer and maybe, stamp of approval, or to your point, you're tweaking it a little. And you do have to
right,
think about the states that you're in, the countries that you're in, of making
right.
sure you're compliant for your state or country, right?
Right. And even just the way that my business works, like I would say I have sometimes I do just a build with no furnishing.
Mm,
So the contract isn't really set up for that. So I kind of parsed out like, okay, let's just have the parts that are, if this is a build only job, I want a contract specific to that. I don't want to talk about purchasing furniture or like the warehouse or whatever because it's not relevant.
right.
So just stuff like that, where again, it's like she gave me this great starting point, and it was way better than what I had, so I up leveled to that. Now I'm up leveling again, now that I'm investing with Wendy to just make it even more personal.
I love it. I love it. So those are like tangible takeaways, right? Like tangible
Yeah.
takeaways for taking Jenny's class. You're really understanding that you had a pretty good system there for doing a design build on your own,
Yeah.
getting some templates and doing some things and some clarity there. And then of course with the standard, understanding that there's 80% of it that maybe is or isn't appropriate to you because you are have your SOPs and stuff, but just up leveling. How about just being in the room? Like I feel like, and I often say that the power, the advantage, the impact from doing a Power Talk Friday event, you came to Luann Live last year
Yep.
in 2023, of being part of the design standard or being in that virtual classroom with Jenny. To me, there's so much more that also is like not quantified as a dollar amount, but it's the connection with the people you make. And
Oh
maybe
yeah.
the aha of somebody saying something or sharing something that you're like, whoa, hadn't thought about it that way. Talk about that
What?
a little bit, Jamie.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the other things that I invested in where I met Meredith is design camp.
Oh,
Um,
right, right,
it's amazing. Like I don't have enough good things to say about it, but again, I'm someone who invests in myself. I'm like a crazy learner, researcher, whatever. So a lot of the information that they were presenting at design camp was not like I've never heard this before. Like yes, I'd heard it on a podcast, I'd heard it here. Like it wasn't some revelation, a lot of it, but number one, just hearing it from someone else, I feel like you can always, like, someone says something in a slightly different way, and you're like, oh, that really hits for me. Like, I've
right.
heard that concept, but like just the way that they presented it makes so much sense, and makes it more applicable to me and my business. And then I say, like, design camp, my biggest takeaway from that was the people. Like
Mm,
I made so many great design friends that I talk to on a daily and weekly basis from there, and that is like invaluable.
right.
So, it's like I have that community. I have people that I can text and be like, this is happening. What do I do? What's going on? And yeah, I feel like that is a massive, massive value, and you can't really quantify it, but it's huge.
It's like the education that doesn't leave with the event. That's the
Right.
thing, right? I have had so many designers and window treatment professionals meet multiple colleagues or that one colleague that has remained their steadfast person that they call for all the things, all the good things, all the
Yep.
crazy things, all the sad things, relating to the business, and always doing the barometer check of, this feels really crazy right now. What just happened? Am I nuts,
Right.
or is this a bad thing? Right?
Right, right. Yeah, and I feel like I have that, like, where we're giving each other gut checks and, taking accountability and being like, okay, this is what happened. Like you said, like wind it back yourself. What's going on here? Like, can you look over my process? Is there something that I'm having a blind spot to, that why this is going off the rails
Yeah.
here?
And I find that, like, listen, you guys hear me talk about the Facebook groups often enough, right? I know that there's tremendous value for the big groups out there that my friends run, that Claire and Veronica and, Cheryl run, and there's others. I'm just missing the names right now, but these are valuable. I know a
Mhm.
lot of learning goes on in them, but a lot of times I see context missing. And so what'll happen, the difference to me, what you just described, if I'm in a Facebook group and something just went sideways on a project and I put the thing in the thing, the text in the group, it's like you just said, like
They don't know the background.
right, Meredith is going to ask you, wait, what did you say
Yeah.
before that? What did you do? Did you
Yep.
forget a step? Like, we've got to get the context first, because without the context, the solutions sometimes are just so drastic and so
Right.
off the
Like, cut them
wall.
off. Yeah. Fire
Right,
them
yeah,
right now. Yeah. You're
red
like,
alert, red
yeah,
flag.
hold on. It was actually your fault. Yeah, that's what I feel.
Exactly.
It's like, and my design friends that I've made, it's like they know we're literally talking daily, weekly. So it's like they know every aspect of my business. They know how I run my business. They know what I'm charging. They know this new document that I'm trying, like, all of that stuff. So
Yeah.
they know the back. I don't have to catch them up. They
Yes.
know, and then I'm
Yeah.
telling them the situation, and they know what's going on in my business to like
Yeah.
help, give a perspective.
Right. And it's what it is it's not a knock on the Facebook group, because they provide a good service. It's a knock on any individual who comes in with a point blank, this is what my consumer did wrong, without the context of how we got to that.
Right.
That's what I don't like. I think it's not the group owners fault. It's
Right.
the individual business person showing up and really basically saying, just, soothe my wounds for me, because poor me. Like,
Right.
I have no patience for it. I have no patience for
Right.
it. So, yeah. So, but I love that, because, look, how many of us are in business by ourselves? Listen, I rent a live office, like storefront, from my other company, just so that I'm with humans. Like,
So
nobody's
you're
in
not
my
in a
exact
closet alone.
right. Like, nobody's
Yeah.
in my exact space with me. Diana's here a couple of days a week, but like the refrigerator's at Window Works, and like the whole team is at Window Works. So I go back and forth. I go over to Nagara's office. I'm like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Like, when I had this podcast, the first 4 years, I ran it part-time while I did window works. It was my side
Yeah.
hustle. So to leave and go home to the third floor was what I needed, because I had 2 days a week to do it and there could be no distractions. I didn't take this off of the window works books. It wasn't off 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I was home 10 business days by myself. That I called my husband. I'm like, did we rent that other like storefront on, because we have a little strip center, little tiny
I'm
strip
coming
mall there.
back.
Yeah. And he's like, the lady's supposed to come Monday with her check. And he goes, she was supposed to have come on Monday with her check, and it was Wednesday. And I'm like, so I'm going to scoop it from her. And
Yeah.
he's like, what? I'm like, it's Wednesday. Did she call you and say? He goes, no. I'm like, so we have
She
no
had her
idea,
chance.
right?
Yeah.
That's it. And I'm like, I'm coming in, I'm bringing my checkbook, because it can be so isolating
Yeah.
to work alone. Like, I have 13 people in my company, but every one of them is virtual. It's
Yeah.
like, and so for you guys, it's the same. But of course, your industry has an event every calendar day of the year where you can take advantage of meeting each other. But you have to have this frame of mind, Jamie, that you have is, I am going to get out of my box. I am going to invest in a class, a conference, a course, and I'm going to not only get the knowledge, but I'm going to meet my peers, because
Right.
that's like 50% of the battle, is having true, meaningful relationships with people who can help you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, that was a lot of my desire to go to Luann Live. I was like, I just want to be in the room. I want to like, see other designers. Like, I just get so energized by that.
Yeah.
Even though I'm an introvert, I'm like, I could talk design with people all day. Like you meet someone and you're like, we could talk for hours. Like, we just have
Yes.
so much to talk about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So one huge takeaway was the relationships that you made. So I
Yeah.
love that. How about was there a specific, process or thing that you were doing that you were like, whoa, what an easier way, or what a better way, or something like that, that came from any one of the things that you've invested in your business?
Well, it's not a process, but I feel like pricing is
Oh,
huge for me. And where my pricing started to where it is now is like night and day. From again, getting around other people. Like, I have no idea starting my business. I came out of design school. They obviously teach you nothing about, business in design school. But I'm like, I don't know what I should be charging. Like, I heard this number, so I'll go with that. Whatever, that seems pretty good. And then just hearing, getting around other designers, hearing from an outside perspective, like, excuse me, you're charging what? Like, that is criminal. They're robbing. That is, Jamie, no, quadruple that immediately. Like, are you freaking kidding me? So I feel like that was my biggest, like, one of the first things that I invested in was not interior design specific. It was like a container for service-based businesses. And I feel like that was one of the things, I was telling you, like, I don't regret investing in anything because I have good takeaways from all of it. But that's something where I'm like, maybe that wasn't the best choice for me. But I'm like, looking back, okay, that's the first thing that got my wheels turning on increasing my prices drastically. So it's like, if that's, quote unquote, all I got out of that, like, that's
That's right.
huge.
That's right.
So maybe it wasn't the perfect fit, but I'm like, just to get that mindset rolling of like, wow, you are criminally undercharging, stop that. Like, that did that for me, and then just all these things kind of build on that, and hearing from other people. And, like, again, you're in an echo chamber, and clients aren't a great like resource for feedback or pricing. That, like, they think it's too expensive if you're $1. So just hearing from other designers and like what they're charging and what's possible was like extremely helpful.
What I think is interesting, and I love that you still think it was a positive experience, because that one that you were talking about was the one investment that you made that wasn't design related specific. It wasn't industry specific coaching or
Right.
training or a course. But how powerful that non-designers thought you were criminally charging too much,
Right.
too less.
Right. Right.
Like,
That was the other thing.
think
It's like
about
they're
that.
not in the industry. Yeah.
That's right. If, 10 designers said, "Oh, Jamie, you're not charging enough," and you're brand new in your career, you still might not listen. But 10 non-designers are telling you that. 10
Right.
potential garden variety consumers are saying. So I think, and that, to your point, was a great catalyst for your brain to be open as you then come into the design industry for more education and knowledge, and you're like, "Oh, right, this isn't the way to do it."
Right. Right.
I
Yeah,
love that,
absolutely.
because I think what happens, I mean, whether you come out of design school or you just decide to be a designer because based on other education or other experiences that you have, we know that many, many, many designers have not been to design school, of
Right.
course, and are successful regardless, right? But however you first start, I can see, like, thinking to yourself that 65 or 75 an hour is probably great, because maybe you came from an admin position where you were making 25. So
Right. Right.
75 feels like $1 million. But when you're running a business and you're not a W-2 employee of a company, that 75 represents everything. It's the
Right.
gas in the car to get to the job. It's the
The
website,
website. Yeah. Yep.
hosting, and you know what I mean? It's not your 75 an hour. And I think that's a big thing that a new business owner has to wrap their brain around. And you see, like when I think about when I started with window treatments, we were always selling a product, right?
Yeah.
I was never selling the design without the product. It's not the business model for window treatments. You don't say, "Here's my design fee for all of the window treatments in your home, and then if you want to buy them from me," it
Yeah.
just doesn't work that way, right? And so I always had cost of goods, installation costs attached to everything. And then, of course, I had Nagara, who just said, "These are the margins you will hit, or don't come
Right.
home."
Right.
Yeah. But I
uh,
think for those like yourself, where you can essentially start off in a service only model. Like you mentioned, not every
right.
project are you selling the furnishing. Sometimes it's the design for the
Right.
construction, period. So that really is your time and intellectual product. And that is the Achilles heel of the industry, is
Yep.
underestimating that value, right?
Right. And I feel like that goes back to like the confidence and the imposter syndrome, where you're like, oh, it's just that, am I that special? Am I that talented? Like, can't everyone do, and you think your superpower is like easy because it's easy for you,
That's
but
right.
it's not, everyone can't do it. So I feel like it kind of loops back to that,
Yeah.
where it's like you need to learn that what you're doing is valuable. And I was just having this conversation with a designer, like, I feel like the more projects you do, the more you're like, oh, wow, this is a lot of work. Like, maybe when you're going into, again, like coming out of design school, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, like I'll throw together some selections for a new build, whatever. Like it's not that big of a deal, or it's not that much work. And then you're like, oh my God, it's so much work. Like the more projects you do, each project, you're like, wow, there's even more stuff. And now I'm going back to the window treatment and redrawing this. And like, it's so much work. So I feel like that helps kind of, helps you realize your value and like, oh, I need to charge what I'm worth and the amount of work that I'm doing on these projects.
That's why Kim Liddy, who's one of the co-authors in the Power Talk Friday experts and a Luann University instructor who teaches time tracking for profitability, is
Yeah.
such an advocate for time tracking, because it's human nature. We underestimate everything. We
Hmm.
underestimate how long it takes for anything to do, or we overestimate it. It doesn't matter. It's like, it's just,
We don't know.
we
Yeah.
don't know. And the data is the only thing that you have to support it.
Yep.
Period. I just know with my own coaching with chairman of the board, the number of times in a coaching session, I'll ask somebody, where do you think most of your business comes from? Like, what are we going to work on? Like, what's working, and let's do more of it. Right.
Yeah.
And I have learned never to take anybody at their word. I've learned that I can't, unless somebody says, oh, wait, hey, Lou, let me pull out my spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I'm going to have the conversation. We're going to talk about it. And then I'm going to say, between now and next month, you need to justify that for me. I want you to make a list of all your clients for the last year, the last 3 years, depending on how many, if it's a firm that does 10 jobs a year, I want them to go back 3 years. If it's a firm that does 10 jobs a month, I want them to go back 1 year, right?
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised how many times the next meeting starts with, oh my God. Like, I thought all of my jobs were coming from Instagram. It turns out that 8 out of 10 are coming from referrals. And it's just
Right.
like, and what happens is our focus for the next year, or at least next quarter, is going to be very different if I know that 80% of your jobs are coming from referrals versus Instagram, right?
Right.
Because now I want two strategies. That tells me two things. And by the way, if it's 25, 25, 25, 25, great. But if 80% are coming from any one place, and you're not a 40+ year business and that one place is referrals, I'm like, okay, that's amazing. And that's a
Yeah.
great testament to you. But we're leaving something off the plate here. Like,
Yeah.
you're not developing an actual marketing strategy. Or if 80% are coming from Instagram, it's like, well, what's happening to all those clients? Why aren't they calling you back, and why aren't they
Referring. Right.
referring you? So what I'm saying is, the data reveals so much information that we can use in our business in all the ways, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that kind of reminds something I was thinking about with investments, like when trying to decide what do you want to invest in, like a lot of it is about what kind of business do you want to run? How many clients are you having a year? I talked about this. I know you know that I hired Rachel, and we talked about this. Like, she's like, don't invest in SEO. Like, your clientele is not just doing a random Google search to find you. Like, we're doing referrals, we're doing connections with builders and architects and that kind of thing. So like, that's where we're going to put the majority of our effort, not on like Pinterest, or it's like, if you have a e-design business where you want to do nationwide and like more, higher volume, lower ticket stuff, like Pinterest might be great. And then you invest in a Pinterest course or a Pinterest, person.
Right.
But it's like just kind of knowing what are your goals in business, and what should your marketing strategy be to invest in for
I
that.
love that. I love that. And it's really something working with Rachel Bozek Johansson, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
just a
yeah,
crazy experience, isn't it?
yeah, yep. She knows her stuff.
Did you work with her before you met her at Luann Live, or have you worked with her since Luann Live?
Yeah, no, I worked with her almost a year ago.
Okay,
It was
okay. So
last
you knew her
April.
going
So
in. Yeah.
yeah, I did, but I found her from the podcast, of
You did.
course.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, yep,
It's that is, I would say, what have I got? 1,000 interviews between the two podcasts, plus how many live events, how many thousands of people I've met. Top 20 really ridiculously, uniquely talented people. I would put Rachel in that category.
yeah,
It's somebody who has such a fine handle on what they do well and dialing it in. It's absolutely amazing to watch her brain work in action. It's crazy.
And I think she's great at marketing and selling herself too. Like
Yes.
like yeah, she's awesome.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
So that was a takeaway from working in that investment in Rachel was, looking at where your existing clients were or where your best clients were, probably the clients that you wanted more of, that
right,
they weren't doing internet searches for you. They were coming from higher level relationships with builders and architects and so forth, it sounds
right.
like.
Yep,
Okay, so you need to develop a strategy for that. And it doesn't
right.
mean that, these other strategies get by the wayside. It's just that it dictates where we spend the bulk of our time and money, right?
Right. And what the priority is, because again,
Right.
it's like I'm one person with not unlimited funds. So, like, where am I going to put, if I have $1,000 to spend this month, like, am I paying someone to do SEO, or am I giving $1,000 of gifts to builders and architects and like setting up coffees? Like, what makes the most sense?
Right, 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 right. So, in thinking about closing up the conversation, you were there 3, 4, 5 years ago listening to the podcast and thinking about building your business and taking all the information in. And of course, I'm sure, and I hope that you still are, and I hope that I still continue to put information in front of you that benefits
Oh,
you.
yeah, for
But
sure.
like, what would you say to somebody who's, first, second, third year in business and is considering, should I invest? Should I do how did you first? Because I think what it is now is, it's just like anything else. You've done it multiple times and you've gotten the payoff from it, whether it's a nugget of information or a drastic change. So
Yeah.
you have flexed the muscle of doing
Yes.
it. But do you remember the first time deciding to make a big, scary investment purchase? And what would you say to that person?
I do. And so, not to keep quoting other people, but Sandra said this like a month ago on one of her podcasts. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I was going to say to Luann. I had to write it down, but she said, if you believe you're in the right seat, if you believe you'll be in business in 5 years, you must invest in your business. And that was like, that
Wow.
was what I was feeling. Like, this is my end game. I've had another career. I've had, like, there's no going back from like Studio Gaspo, me being in business for myself. There's no other option. Like, this is what I'm obsessed with. I love it. It's what I'm going to be doing, until I retire, which I don't even want to retire because I freaking love my job. So it's like, what is my other option here? Like, this is it. If I really believe like this is it and I'm going to make it, like, I have to make investments in myself,
I love it.
and I have to be able to up level my business and just keep like closing the learning gap so I can be better every day.
I have to say it's going to be fun to see where you are in another 5 years. It really is,
I
because
hope so.
and
I'll be here.
well, and that's a good question, Jamie. What is your aspiration? Like, if I were to say to you, what does your firm look like in 5 years? Because there's, you could be one of those like, I want to be the next Martha Stewart, or you could be like, I want to
Yeah.
still be solo with one or like, what is your vision for your firm, and how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, so I was telling you off air, I did hire my first employee, which, like, speaking of scary investments, it's exciting, but also terrifying. Like, I am responsible for someone else's livelihood. But again, I'm like, what else am I going to do? Like, this is the right step. It's the next step. Of course, it's uncomfortable because it's growth, but it's the right thing to do. Like, if I plan on being in business for 30 more years, I need to hire this person. So anyway, in 5 years, I don't want to have a huge firm.
Hmm.
I feel like I would like to cap out at 5 or 6 people maybe,
Right.
where I have a little more capacity, a little more, specialized job functions and that kind of thing. But I don't want to, I feel like you get to this point where you're like, okay, now I have 20 people. Now I just have to keep getting more jobs to feed the beast, where it's
Right.
like, am I really making more than when I was on my own with like 10 jobs and just,
Right.
for what? So I want to have, I feel like a lot of people do, but just bigger, fewer jobs and not a million employees, but, a few.
I like that. That's such a
Yeah.
valid aspiration for a business owner. It's funny because as we're recording yesterday, we put a post out on Instagram that it was, basically that do more things for less people, make more money
Right.
by doing more things, better things, charging higher fees to less people. I
Yep.
mean, for somebody who has 20,000 followers, I know, Instagram, like my team is always like, oh, here's a good Instagram strategy. I'm like, why? Why? There's 25 people commenting. Like, I don't, don't look at that 22,000. That is not, go and look at the email list that has legitimately 8,000 people on her saying,
Right.
hi, Luann, I'm interested, right? But yesterday, like 780 comments, or no, 700 some likes, and like 150 or 60 comments on
Man.
this, that what
Yeah.
you just said, like, let
So it
me do
resonates.
fewer projects and make more money, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think, sorry,
No,
I
go
think
ahead.
every designer feels this, like, even sometimes the small jobs are the more
Oh,
energy sucking, time consuming.
totally.
It's like I'm doing the same thing. I have the same setup. It's no matter how big the job is. So I should be at least getting the payoff in the
That's
end,
right.
not like dealing with this tiny job that's sucking all my energy and bandwidth for no money.
It's the truth. It's the truth. And it comes from having the confidence in yourself to price yourself well, and then to stand there stand in your Sandra Funk space and say, yeah, that's
Right.
how much it is.
Right. And I feel
Right.
like it's not always easy. Like
No, of course
I
it's
say this, I'm
not.
like, I don't get a ton of leads. I get a lot of no's, and I know that. I set myself up for that. I literally have my inquiry form to repel most people. Like it's got some pretty high minimums on there, but I'm like, that's what I don't want 30 leads a month. That's not
That's
the
right.
business I'm running.
That's
But
right.
just like remembering that, reminding myself of that, I'm like, okay, haven't gotten many leads lately. Like, that's okay. You don't want many leads. You want
That's
a
right.
couple of the right leads. So it
Yeah,
can be
it is
hard,
it
but
is a head game, though. It is a head
yeah,
game, the constant reminder to, like you just said, it's like, "Oh, wait, I don't want 20 leads. I need 4, and I've gotten 2. I only have to get
yeah,
2 more."
right, right.
Right, right. No, that's awesome. I love that, Jamie. I think that's you know what? I it's I will be the first shocked person if you don't reach every goal and aspiration you put out for yourself. You're just too
Thank you.
intentional. Yeah, you really it's refreshing to see somebody who's willing to bet on themselves. That's basically how I'm reading it. You are betting on yourself, and you are like, let's go all in, all the money on
Yep,
the line. I love
I'm
it.
gonna be here. Yep.
That's it. That's it. Oh my God. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you. This is awesome.